Dragon. They did not tell me it was a biopic for Bruce Lee.
Oh my, you had no idea.
So when I sat down,
wow.
I had no idea. When I sat down with them, they explained to me, and I immediately thought to myself, I must be kidding myself. There's no way I can. I didn't have any martial arts training at the time.
Wow.
I didn't. I always make the comparison that it's like asking someone who never danced before to portray Rudolf Nureyev in a story like that. So I was and it was a heavy weight. It was a heavy burden on my shoulders because I was just starting my career. I was 25 years old, and I thought, if I make a fool of myself in this, and I've seen a lot of actors try to portray him and fail miserably, or kind of somewhat make a mockery of it, and I felt like, God, in my heart, I just wanted to do the man justice. I just wanted to make something that was incredibly dynamic and that really sold that his charisma, his energy, and his just zest for life. And I had problems with the training. When I was getting into it, I actually had an emotional breakdown through it.
Oh, really?
Just because I wasn't. I thought the train was moving too fast.
Huh.
And so in hindsight, it was kind of necessary because there are certain issues that you need to plow through, and obstacles that you need to break through, and sometimes they don't happen unless you invest or that kind of emotion or make that kind of commitment.
Right, it's got to be a full-blown commitment to a role like that, especially because he's so iconic and so well-known. That had to be a life-changing experience and also for your career, but let's get to the nitty-gritty here about why we're talking today, and that's the stereotypes that exist in Hollywood, and to this day for Asian actors who want to make it in Hollywood. The Bruce Lee story, that was about an Asian man. So therefore, that was an easier role for an Asian actor to play. So what are your thoughts on what's going on in Hollywood to this day? We hear a lot of criticism still about whitewashing, Oscar's so white. That was a big controversy, earlier this year.
Yeah.
What do you think now? What do you think's happening?
Oh boy, it's finally getting the recognition. The issues are getting the recognition it actually needs.
Yeah.
That's my point of view. I've been up for a number of the more recent roles that were significantly Asian in origin, and was passed on. I always thought, back in the 90s, that I thought it would go forward. There was always this promise that, things are going to change, but it's gotten somewhat more confusing.
How so?
And I look at it, back when in the 80s when we started, feature films were sort of this elite kind of place to be in. And that's why you had the Oscars.
Right.
TV and internet was not as prevalent. And it kind of, it's rearing its head now that TV has much more diversity.
For sure.
And the internet, if you look at YouTube, has the percentage of ethnic groups that are involved in front of the camera is huge.
Right.
And so feature films still carry that kind of that power, where it's still trying to create an elite program.
Right.
And along with that, come egos and sort of, it goes hand in hand. And so with that,
so Jason,
yeah.
who do you blame then? For this problem in Hollywood, especially like you're saying in the movie business? Is it the executives? Is it the producers? Is it the decision makers? Is it the audience? Is it the role of actors like you who need to push the envelope a little bit more? What do you think?
I really contend that it's all of the above.
Okay.
Yeah, because I I'm not a personality kind of thing to blame anybody or thing. If we want to really show our stories, and if our culture is so much more different than mainstream Western culture, then we should write our own stories. We should develop so that we have ourselves to blame for that. On the other end of the spectrum, we are looking at executives, and we are looking at studios that have the inclination to make decisions to change things or enhance, the situation for the better, but are not making those calls.
Right.
So you do have, back and forth issues.
Because it is frustrating, Jason. I mean, me as also an Asian American, when I see constantly these decisions being made about the roles and who's being cast for these roles that are originally meant to be an Asian character, and then they cast someone who's Caucasian, and that's still happening today over and over and over again. So I can't imagine what it's like to be in the business as an Asian actor. I see it from the outside, and I get frustrated. So it must be, I don't know, I mean, do you feel like it's one step forward, two steps back? I mean, that's sort of the feeling I get from folks here in Hollywood who are trying to make a difference, and yet they don't see enough change going on.
Yeah, that's true. It is one step forward, two steps back. I mean, it's hard to really. I think, like you say, like now. Okay, let's say we have actors of Asian American descent who are speaking out. Mm-hmm. But if you notice, most of the people that are speaking out are actors that are doing pretty well for themselves.
Right.
They're working actors. They're highly visible. What you don't see is a lot of actors who are not working or who are afraid to step up to the plate.
Right.
And be vocal because their jobs are pending. They got bills to pay.
Yep.
They got kids to feed, and a lot of people aren't willing to step forward. And I think as a collective, Asian Americans, unless they're like third generation, they're not really vocal about a lot of issues to be argumentative about. Mm-hmm. We tend to be, as a collective, a little more do the work, keep your head down, stay humble, kind of thing. So there's, I think, over the years, it's been that way. There's been individuals who have been outspoken, who've had the platform at some point or another.
Right.
And maybe it hasn't been a strong enough push. It hasn't had a big wave of effect like how the African Americans have had in their approach to entertainment industry.
Right. It does seem. Yeah, it does. Sorry, Jason, to interrupt, but it does seem like we are starting to see this paradigm shift. That's a bit stronger this time around. That Asian.
Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think the newer generation are starting to actually become more Western, become more vocal. Step into the light for politics as well, and as well as racism. So
right. Well, Jason, you're right now in Singapore, in Asia, and so I think it's pretty interesting what we're seeing when it comes to media, and especially the power of Asia, particularly the power of China when it comes to Hollywood wanting to, seize the moment and get that market share in China. So do you think that's going to shift the way that the media behaves and the way that movies are cast because of the growing power of Asia?
That's been happening for about 20 years now, and it's the money grab that's there. Whether there are Asians in films or not, if they're gonna, make big bucks off of any kind of film featuring, say, predominantly Caucasian actors, then they're gonna put money towards it. Unless, it's like in China, they want to see their own stars. They want to see, their own identity there. So even as an Asian American, we don't quite fit in because maybe our Mandarin is not as fluent as what they demand.
Right.
So I haven't seen much change in that direction. Hollywood is definitely collecting a lot of money for Hollywood films.
Yeah.
And they're doing very well in China. But you don't see a significant change, meaning the investors from China are not particular about who is in the movie.
Yeah.
And maybe, we always had this thing, throughout my career about being the token Asian. It's like you look at some of the big blockbuster superhero movies and they'll put in a token Asian.
Yeah.
But they will not give that bigger role or the leading role to an Asian American.
Right.
But they'll give you like little kibbles and bits, yeah.
Jason, one last question. What are you up to? What are some of the projects that you're working on, and what can we expect from you?
I'm actually getting behind the pen, and I'm actually writing. So I'm looking forward to doing stuff. There's some things happening with YouTube Red. There's also some indie films that show a lot of redemption, a lot of heart in.
Great.
I got stuff going on. It's fun,
Good. Well, I'm glad to hear it. Well, Jason, it was such a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Nice to meet you. Thank you all.
Okay.